Hello and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the most comprehensive Hindu analysis on YouTube. So let's start the discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 8 important topics for a detailed analysis. So let's cover all these 8 topics comprehensively so that you don't have to go back and read the newspaper again. But before we start, I want to talk to you about Unacademy's Platinum program. See, when it comes to online learning, there is one big limitation. The limitation is that the teachers cannot see the students. We don't know what the students are doing in the class. Are they really listening? Are they writing notes? Are they being attentive? Even students have often told us that, sir, I'm not able to hold myself accountable. So that's the reason why we have launched the Platinum program to solve this problem statement. In Unacademy Platinum, we provide for a seamless two-way interaction with a mandatory camera on policy for the students. We have a small batch size so that the teacher can pay adequate attention to all the students in the class. And with camera on policy, we can see the students and hence we can hold them accountable as well. This provides for a much better interactive experience. So the next new batch for Platinum is starting very soon. And those of you who are interested to enroll, please take a look at the features of Platinum, how it is different from the regular online classes that you find across the industry. It's not just the two-way interaction. You also get access to the best quality study material along with the live and recorded lectures. You'll get access to weekly tests and test series along with one-on-one mentorship with the educators themselves. The mentorship would not be from SMEs or subject matter experts. The mentorship would be directly with your teachers, with your educators on a regular basis. So, this program is primarily designed for serious UPSC aspirants. So, if you're one of them and if you're interested to enroll, please check out the details by clicking on the link provided in the description below. With this, let's get started and look at the first topic. On page number 10, there's an important article related to science and technology, related to artificial intelligence. Recently, Elon Musk made a very controversial statement. Elon Musk has claimed that there's no point in studying for medicine or becoming a surgeon because, according to him, in another 3 years, surgeons are going to be replaced by autonomous robot surgeons. Now, this claim by Elon Musk generated a lot of excitement as well. It triggered a lot of speculation and controversy and even triggered a lot of outrage. Now, that's how billionaires and entrepreneurs often make such statements. If you remember how Nikhil Kamath said it's useless to study MBA or to focus on management schools, right? Of course, they have their own logic for that. They have a rationale behind it, right? Especially visionaries who can look into the future, who have that insight, who have that privileged vantage point. They can see what's coming, what are the new trends coming up in the industry, and thus they can make these claims. But sometimes the claims sound to be very sensational. Now, in the field of medicine, surgery is one of the most challenging and the most revered part of medicine. So, is it really true that in 3 years robots can replace human surgeons? So, let's put this claim of Elon Musk to test. That's what the article is trying to do. So, let's go beyond the article as well and understand this important topic because this raises many concerns. It raises the technological limitations which might be still present. It brings up regulatory concerns. And more importantly, it raises ethical concerns. So let's talk about this topic in slight detail as it can be a great essay topic as well. So when you look at autonomous robots, they are being deployed across a number of industries, from assembly lines in factories to automated driving to automated aviation and as well as some level of autonomy in hospitals. So, in every sector, you're seeing this major disruption. And we are not just talking about the introduction of AI models, we are talking about the actual usage of autonomous robots, machines that are empowered with artificial intelligence and machine learning that can perform tasks autonomously. So, is this really possible in the world of medicine? Tomorrow, can we see a future where a robotic surgeon carries out a precise surgery, which could make surgeries more safer, which could improve the survivability of a complex surgery? Or are these claims exaggerated? Now, when you look at the domain of surgery, as I said, it's one of the most complex fields within the domain of medicine, right? Amongst all doctors, surgeons are highly revered. And in fact, if you talk to patients who have gone through complex life saving surgeries, critical surgeries, they even equate their surgeon with God because a surgeon requires a God like precision, requires a God like adaptability. If you take, let's say, a cardiac surgery or a complex tumor removal, right? Or let's say, for example, a complex trauma incident where surgeons play a critical role in carrying out life saving procedures. It's often said that surgeons are blessed with these hands, that they're able to precisely carry out these surgical actions that can save lives. Now, this is a skill that surgeons build over a period of time. It's pure expertise, it's pure knowledge, and more importantly, it's about the individual intuition of each surgeon, which really sets them apart. So, can we see a future tomorrow where robots can replace this role of a surgeon? That is the big question being asked here. Now, when you look at any complex surgery, there are a number of variable factors that play a critical role. No matter how skilled the surgeon is, no matter how much experience the surgeon has, there are many variables which are not under the surgeon's control. Though some patients revere their surgeons as gods, surgeons themselves know that they can't play God. That is the limitation placed by nature itself. There are multiple variable factors, including the anatomy of each individual, the physiology of each individual. Carrying out a surgery on an infant is starkly different from carrying out a surgery on an old person. There are a new set of challenges and limitations that get placed depending on the type of patient. Each patient has a unique anatomy and physiology, and rare complexities might come up during the course of the surgery. Before the surgery, the team of medical professionals, they might be very confident that they might easily handle this particular process. But during the surgery itself, on the table, there might be newer complications which will develop, which requires the surgeon to apply their intuition, use their expertise and skills to quickly adapt to the changing circumstances in real time. There can be unexpected blood loss, or there can be um, unexpected implications on other organs, which could possibly result in multi organ failure as well. So, responding to these situations in real time requires a great deal of dexterity on the part of the surgeons. Now, this is where many surgeons have made a big name for themselves, primarily, as I said, through their skill, their knowledge, their expertise, and eventually their gut feeling or their intuition that they go with, which is something they have built over years and years of experience. Now, when there are so many variable factors at play, can a AI enabled robot really adapt to such challenging and changing conditions? That is the question. Theoretically and conceptually, yes, it is possible. Theoretically, a AI robot can even perform better than a human surgeon. There's no doubt about it. Conceptually, this sounds good, but is it practical? And currently, where are we when it comes to autonomous robots? What do we see in other industries? And is it realistic to expect that human surgeons would someday be entirely replaced by autonomous robotic surgeons? Now, when you look at autonomous systems, driving is where we are seeing a lot of scaling by various AI and tech and automobile companies. For example, you take Tesla or Google's parent company, Alphabet, which runs a cab service in San Francisco, which is quite popular, Waymo cabs, which are autonomous self driving vehicles. Now, if you look at this, you are seeing a real world application of autonomous systems. But however, please understand, in the transport and driving domain, these companies and many others, they have invested billions and billions of dollars over the last 15 years at least. Autonomous driving and self driving, it has matured over the past 1.5 to 2 decades. That's why you are seeing a practical application on the ground. But by the way, when it comes to self driving, even in the United States, there is no federal license which is even given today as well. So, whatever limited self driving cars you see, it's restricted to some cities like San Francisco, which is the Bay Area, the tech hub, the Silicon Valley, where state permits are given. And don't forget, these are in highly controlled, restricted, and structured environments where autonomous systems are able to function, where the parameters are quite well defined, where the roads have proper signages. Most people are expected to follow the traffic rules. Imagine deploying a Waymo in India. I'm sure it would get lost or it would simply stop driving. But even in a city like San Francisco, where there are strict traffic enforcements and very good traffic signages, even here, autonomous self driven vehicles have run into problems. There was a case where a traveler who had taken the self driving cab to the airport, he had to fly to catch, and the cab kept going in circle, right? And it never stopped. And eventually, he had to press the emergency button, reach out to the company itself, and they had to remotely bring the vehicle to a stop. And he ended up missing his flight. Now, this is still fine. Maybe it was a one off case, but you can't afford such errors in surgery, right? There's no second chance. And even the slightest, minutest of error in surgery will result in unintended consequences, irreversible consequences. There are incidents with self driving experiments across the world where real world accidents have taken place. But that doesn't mean self driving autonomous vehicles are not worthy of pursuing. Definitely, conceptually, when you look at it theoretically, it will help reduce accidents. It will make travel more safer compared to the kind of drivers we have today on road, right? Definitely in the future, let's say 40, 50 years down the line, autonomous vehicles, definitely, they are conceptually very sound. And a lot of advances have happened in the domain with new sensory technologies, new advanced AI tools, and much faster processors, better, faster connectivity. It has definitely helped a certain level of maturity coming up and scaling up being seen in autonomous vehicle industry. But the same cannot be said about autonomous robots in surgery and the use of autonomy in the field of healthcare and medicine. We are decades away from realizing such a realistic plan. Yes, there are a lot of studies going on, research being conducted. For example, just last year at the John Hopkins University, researchers have claimed that an autonomous robo was independently able to perform a gallbladder removal surgery in a simulated lab environment, not on a real patient, but where tissues are simulated and even blood is simulated through dyes. And the robo performed a 17-step task to remove the simulated gallbladder of a hypothetical patient. Yes, in a controlled lab environment, theoretically and conceptually, this model will work. Robots are trained to follow a step by step process, right? They're all trained on large volumes of data, and the AI model itself would be a LLM model, which would rely upon its training data to predict the upcoming scenarios, and appropriately it will try to make step-by-step decisions. So in a controlled environment where there is predictability, where you can predict what might happen next, then yes, conceptually, theoretically, this model can work where robots can perform surgery. But on a real patient having a complex health condition, where on the surgery table there might be new complications which will come up, even the slightest, minutest of error could result in the death of the patient. You can't rely on autonomous robots. We are far away from realizing that. It would take decades, probably. And it's also about the cost involved. Now, see, for example, in the world of aviation, a level of autonomy has been introduced which can assist pilots. For example, in cruise mode, when the flight has achieved cruise altitude, right? There are autonomous systems functioning which can assist a pilot. But during critical conditions like landing or takeoff or turbulent weather, the human component becomes irreplaceable. The skill and the expertise and the intuition of a pilot can never be seen in case of autonomous robots. Even if it comes up someday, even if that level of autonomy comes in, maybe some years down the line, even then there will be regulatory concerns and ethical concerns. Because see, imagine a autonomous surgeon robot performing a autonomous surgery. Let's say if the patient dies, and if it's a case of medical negligence, then who is liable? Who will be held liable for medical negligence? Would it be the hospital? Would it be the lifeless machines, or the ones who wrote the code for the robot, or the ones who designed and developed that robot, or the team of doctors who are guiding the robot? So this requires a lot of regulatory changes that are necessary. It raises serious ethical questions, right? Eventually, it's about human accountability, and it's about what is right from a social perspective as well. Would the society consider this to be acceptable for machines to be intervening in healthcare at every stage? So this requires much wider ethical debates, legal debates. And it's not as if Elon Musk has claimed that in 3 years all surgeons will get replaced. You don't have to become a surgeon. You don't even have to study medicine, right? Of course, you can't even dismiss the statement of Elon Musk. There is some element of truth because theoretically, conceptually, he's right. But practically, we are still decades and probably years away from seeing such changes taking place. So, what is more realistic is that we will definitely see autonomous robots in every industry and sector, including in the field of surgery, but they will act as an assistant. They will act as an assistant to a surgeon, to a skilled human surgeon. For example, they can bring up all the relevant information, the patient information and data in real time. They can provide for different simulations. They can employ augmented reality, virtual reality to create training models, or it can overlay the anatomy of the patient through augmented reality where the doctor can use it as a guiding tool, or it can sound alerts if the surgeon is getting close to critical organs, right? So such assistance can be expected. Now, in the US, the FDA, which is the regulator for the drug and the health sector, it has granted approvals for certain autonomous robots at level 1 and level 2, which perform the role of an assistant. But fully autonomous robo-surgeons are not deployed anywhere in the world. Across the world, there is not a single instance of autonomous robots being successfully deployed where they can independently carry out a surgery. And also look at the cost of this. Training such robots requires massive amounts of data. It requires huge data centers, power consumption, and such cost is never sustainable in the healthcare industry. And if at all autonomous systems are introduced in healthcare, in surgery as well, even at an assistant level, this will increase the cost of healthcare. So this again brings up regulatory and ethical questions because this could drive up out of pocket expenditure for patients, right? But of course, it's not all negative and drawbacks. There are some positives as well. Imagine in remote areas where you don't have sufficient doctors, where you don't have enough surgeons and tertiary healthcare centers. Autonomous robots, which can act as assistants, they can act as a multiplier effect. They may not replace surgeons and doctors, but they can definitely help supplement them. And studies have shown that autonomous robots in healthcare can improve efficiency by 25 to 30%. It can reduce the surgery time, improve the precision of the surgery. So, as an assistant, yes, they can play a great role. But replacing surgeons, replacing humans is almost impossible, at least in the near future. And this applies probably in every industry and every sector. Can autonomous robots or AI tools replace educators and teachers? Can they replace bureaucrats and government officials? Right? Theoretically, yes, everything is possible. Conceptually, it sounds right in a controlled, simulated environment. But in a real world scenario, you would still need human intervention. More importantly, you need regulatory changes to be made. You need to address the ethical concerns. You need to keep the larger well being of the society in mind. So, given these challenges, the claims of Elon Musk largely falls apart. So, based on what we have discussed, take up a practice question. Now, can you tell me, would you ever get a surgery done if it is being performed by an autonomous robot? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's move to the next topic. Let's talk about the recent workers' protests that we saw in Noida, which turned violent, and it led the UP government to employ force against the workers who were protesting. So, this was a development which gripped national headlines, and the issue continues to simmer, by the way. As of now, the UP government, led by Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, they have come out with an interim solution to address some of the concerns of the workers. But the larger issues and the root causes, they still remain unaddressed. So, what led to these protests in Noida? What does it tell us about India's labor market, the labor issues in our country, the well being of our laborers and workers? Let's explore this in slight detail. The main reason why we saw these massive protests by workers in Noida was because they were demanding a wage hike. They were also demanding better working conditions. See, these are two basic necessities for any worker, not just a factory worker, not just for a daily wage laborer. This applies for anyone, probably, especially in the middle class, right? When you're working at a private firm, need not be a factory or a typical industry, it could be even a service based company. All you need is decent, sustainable wages through which you can take care of your family, take care of yourself, and you need proper working conditions so that there is some focus on your personal life, some work life balance. There is some ability where you can focus on your health. That is what is necessary for workers across the world. These are the basic concerns of any laborer. And you also need some degree of social security. Apart from the salary that you earn, apart from the payments, right? And apart from a degree of work life balance, you also need long term security. What happens after you retire, right? Do you have enough PF or let's say insurance or gratuity so that you can rely upon that and you don't have to keep working throughout your life? So you need that long term social security. Or what happens if, let's say, you are not able to work? Let's say you suffer a health issue, or let's say you get into an accident, which possibly could lead to job loss, right? You need some form of social security, a safety net of sorts. That's what any worker or a laborer would require. Now, in Noida, which is a major industrial hub of Uttar Pradesh, the workers saw that in the neighboring state of Haryana, the Haryana government has recently increased the minimum wages by 30 to 35%, which is a very significant jump. So, an ordinary factory worker in Haryana, in the neighboring state of Haryana, stands to earn around 14 to 19,000 rupees per month, which is still low given the price rise that you see in the economy. To sustain a family, 15 to 19,000 rupees is almost nothing. But still, the workers in Haryana got a big relief because the Haryana government increased the minimum wages by 30 to 35%. This led to a significant increase in the final wages that workers would receive, which would be in the range of 14 to 19,000 rupees per month. So when workers in Noida saw this, obviously they were frustrated because for many years, minimum wages in UP has largely remained flat. See, this is not just about one state. This applies across states in India, where minimum wages are largely untouched. Even if changes are done, nominal, minimal changes are done. Every year, what the state governments do is that they keep changing the dearness allowance, which doesn't really make much of a difference. But they never hike the minimum wages. This is where the concern lies for workers across the country, especially in Noida. They saw that in neighboring Haryana, workers were getting a big jump in their minimum wages, which would result in increase in the take-home salary that they would get. But in Noida, the workers had a lot of grievances. Resentment had built up. According to reports, workers in factories in Noida, Ghaziabad, they have been exploited by the factory owners, especially in small, micro, and medium enterprises. They've been made to work 12-hour shifts, which is way beyond the 8-hour work norm. And they've not been paid any overtime. For the extra hours, they're being forced to put in. It's not their choice. They're being forced to do that. And they're not getting paid any extra money for the overtime that they are putting in. Workers have complained that their week offs are also cancelled, meaning they're forced to work almost 7 days a week. Maybe their manager or factory owner must be Narayan Murthy. So, given these circumstances where workers are overworked, underpaid, and there's no job security because most workers are contractual workers. And when they are contractual workers, they may not have access to a provident fund, gratuity, insurance, meaning no social security for them. So it is this resentment which has burst out onto the streets in Noida. And this is the situation across India as well. So when Haryana increased the minimum wages significantly by around 30 to 35%, this led to similar demands from workers in neighboring Noida as well. That is the main reason behind these protests. And also, please understand, the last few weeks have been very difficult for the weaker sections in the country, with the prices of LPG cylinders jumping, cylinders being unavailable, right? Though India says that we have sufficient supplies, which is true as well at a macro level, but the lived reality is different. Because see, many of the poor people, they will not even have legal LPG connections. Many of them would be buying it from the local shops and black market, or they would be getting the cylinders refilled by local vendors. So government data is entirely based on the official estimates. So people have been struggling across India ever since the Iran war began, ever since Hormuz was shut, and India has faced a severe crunch with regard to oil gas supplies. The commodity costs has shot up. Gas prices have gone up. Essential food items have increased in general. The cost of living basically has gone up for the average citizen, for the common man. So while cost of living keeps on increasing, from bus fare to metro fare to food items, every price keeps on increasing. But wages for these factory workers will remain flat with no major improvement, no major hike seen in their wages and their income. So this obviously accompanied with being overburdened, overworked, underpaid. It adds to that resentment and anger, and it will burst out in the form of street protests and violence. So now let's understand how exactly minimum wages are fixed. What's the legal framework that we have in the country when it comes to minimum wages? How these demands can be addressed. So when you look at the setting of minimum wages, we have the Minimum Wages Act of 1948, which was the erstwhile law that allowed the central government to set a floor wage, which would be a minimum threshold based on which states could determine their own minimum wages. So every state will have its own wage rules, or it would have passed a wage law based on which the state governments fix the minimum wages, but it should be above the floor wage set by the center. But now we have a new set of codes, a new set of industrial codes, the Code on Wages 2019, under which the central government fixes a binding minimum benchmark and states cannot go below this. Previously, because of the legal regulatory gaps, some states would fix minimum wages below the national benchmark set by the central government. But now, since the Code on Wages has come into effect recently, all the four labor codes have taken effect. The center will fix the minimum national benchmark and no state government can go below this. But however, the center is yet to declare as to what is that national minimum wage benchmark. So now the states are still determining the minimum wages. And as I said, they often increase the dearness allowance twice a year, which is very basic minimal increase, and no substantial increase is seen in minimum wages for workers. So right now the government is looking to implement the recommendations of the 15th Indian Labour Conference. So there is a basic formula on which the minimum wages are computed. It should account for the worker to be able to support a family of three constituents. A family of three constituents means taking care of the self, taking care of the spouse, and two children, the two dependent children. This is what is taken into account. The expenses required to take care of self, the spouse, and two dependent children. Based on this, the central government is working out a national benchmark, and states are supposed to declare minimum wages above that. So once this takes complete effect, probably there will be some relief for the workers. So right now, the UP government, it initially used police force to manage the violence which had broken out, but to provide some interim relief because the demands of the workers was genuine. The concerns of the workers are absolutely valid. So the government has announced an interim relief of 20 to 21% jump in minimum wages. And it will have retroactive effect, which means workers will realize an immediate benefit. When the next payout happens, they will see an immediate jump in the take home money that they get. And this has given some temporary relief. But ad hoc solutions are not going to solve the fundamental structural problems. That's why the state government has constituted a wage board to look at wage related issues and the cost of living. And the labor department has begun conducting audits of factories and establishments to see whether they're actually following all the labor codes and standards. Are they really depositing money in EPF and in social security funds? Are they providing for direct bank transfer, which is mandatory? Right? Cash payments are not encouraged so that the workers can realize the immediate benefits. So labor department has become more proactive with labor officials conducting more audits and inspections. The local administration has been ordered by the state government to set up sector-wise grievance committees for each sector, for textile factories, leather factories. The local administration will set up these grievance committees, which will involve the local officials from the district collector's office or the district magistrate's office. And it will also have representatives from the factory owners, from the trade union and the laborers. So all stakeholders will be represented in the grievance committee, where these local issues that come up at the local industry level or at the sector level, they can be resolved locally without allowing its escalation to happen. Because many industries are concentrated in certain pockets. Similar type of industries are often concentrated in clusters. So when sector-based grievance committees are set up, it will help address the grievances of that entire sector in one go. Local officials can act as that mediators between factory owners and the workers and the laborers. Because see, while the concern of the workers is genuine, you should also look at the other side of the equation here. It's not that factory owners are having a gala time and minting money, right? We're not talking about the large conglomerates, millionaires and billionaires. We are talking about MSME industry, which primarily employs millions of workers and laborers in the country. right? The small industries, they are facing a huge challenge. The global environment is uncertain. India's exports is taking a hit because of the trade wars triggered by Donald Trump. The ongoing wars and conflicts and geopolitical tensions has disrupted supply chains. It has affected the availability of raw materials, intermediaries. It has disrupted the export of Indian goods. So all the small industries, medium enterprises, they are under significant pressure. It's almost becoming impossible for them to survive in this difficult market. Many factories are shutting down. So even they can't do much. They can't really provide a significant increase in wages. So that is a dilemma that India is dealing with. And it highlights why it is important for the government to focus on labor and as well as industrial reforms. On one side, the government should address the genuine labor issues, protect labor rights, at the same time, create growth opportunities for the industry with better incentives, better infrastructure, which is seriously missing in India. At the same time, you need to handle the external situations that are developing, which are having a domestic impact. India can't remain as a silent observer to these external conflicts and geopolitical tensions, right? India has largely adopted a policy of silence or some sort of ambiguity and multi alignment. But today you're seeing the real world impact on the ground. Domestic factors are getting affected because of external disruptions. That's where it becomes important for the government to take a stand to try and shape global developments so that the domestic interests can be protected. The protest in Noida is not just a result of worker grievances, it is also partly a result of rising prices, which is connected to global geopolitical developments. So these are the steps. Focus on labor rights, push for better wages, better social security, better working conditions. Ensure that mandatory week off is given. Ensure that if overtime is done by workers, they have to be paid. They have to be paid double usually. Fix a floor price for that as well, right? The working requirement is 8 hours. And any extra work put in, for each hour, the worker should be paid at double the rate. Ensure that the middlemen, the contractors, don't abuse the workers. Usually, it's the contractors who take away most of the money, give only a small portion of it to the workers, right? Contractors, when they enter into the deals with the factory owners, they would have quoted a much higher price. They'll hardly share half of it with the actual workers. So the government will have to step in to control the contractors, the middlemen, regulate them, and push for greater reforms, greater growth. There's no other choice for India. It has to continue growing at a much faster rate. For that, you need reforms, you need policy changes, you need policy support through government incentives, right? Plus, externally, every step has to be taken to insulate the Indian domestic economy from global external shocks. So, based on what we have discussed, take up this practice question and please use it for your mains answer writing practice. Now, let's move to another interesting article in today's paper. I always tell you, Sunday newspapers are very interesting and very useful compared to any other day. Many students ignore the Sunday paper, they think they can take a break. But trust me, Sunday papers actually give you a lot of interesting points and insights, which is very useful for the exams. Look at this article. It focuses on border security along the sensitive India Pakistan border, particularly in the state of Punjab, and how the focus on border security is affecting the local farmers in Punjab. So let's examine this issue quickly. Then we have few small articles which we can wrap up later. So when you look at the India-Pakistan border, there are two types of borders that we share with Pakistan. From the Jammu sector, approximately over here, across Punjab, Rajasthan, all the way till Gujarat, till the Kutch region. This section of the India-Pakistan border, which is what we refer to as the Radcliffe Line, is considered as the IB, the international border of India and Pakistan. This is a settled boundary where we have no standing disputes. In the Kutch region, where the IB is supposed to meet the Arabian Sea, in the marshy areas of Run of Kutch. We do have a standing dispute over here over Sir Creek, the Sir Creek dispute. Apart from the Sir Creek dispute, there's no other dispute across the IB. Then after the IB, from Jammu towards Kashmir, we have the temporary de facto border, as Pakistan has illegally occupied Indian territory in Jammu and Kashmir, which is the LOC, the line of control. This LOC ends somewhere over here in the Ladakh region, and it's known as point NJ9842, which is the northernmost point of the LOC, the temporary de facto border between India Pakistan in J&K, where Pakistan has illegally occupied Indian territory. That is Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So, given the security threats that emanate from Pakistan, we have very stringent border security measures. Pakistan has been involved in cross border infiltration attempts. State actors like Pakistani Army, Pakistani Rangers, and as well as the ISI, its intelligence agency, they're actively involved in enabling the infiltration of terrorists into India, not just across the LOC, but even across the international border. Pakistan has worked with organized criminal cartels, backing smugglers to carry out organized crime, which creates enough funds for financing terrorism. Especially from Afghanistan, Pakistan is involved with criminal cartels to pump drugs, arms, and other contraband into India, which is basically smuggled across the border into India. In fact, in Rajasthan, Punjab sector, there are underground tunnels which smugglers often exploit. In LOC as well, across the LOC, there are underground tunnels that terrorists exploit to sneak into India. And of late, Pakistan is even using drones, cheap commercial drones, to drop arms, weapons, funds, and drugs across the border into India. So it's one of the most sensitive, delicate borders for India as far as our internal national security is concerned. Given the disputes we have, given the number of conflicts we have fought, obviously, India would be more obsessed with border security and border management over here. So the border guarding force, the designated border guarding force here is the BSF, the Border Security Force, as per the One Border, One Force policy. Under the One Border, One Force policy that was adopted after the Kargil War, each international border is secured by one border guarding force, which is a central armed police force. So BSF guards the entire stretch of the border with Pakistan. It also guards the entire stretch of the border with Bangladesh. Now, can you find out the border guarding forces for the other land borders of India? Like which force guards India's borders with Nepal and Bhutan? Which force guards India's borders with China or with Myanmar? So please let me know that in the comments. Now, to secure this border, as part of border management, India has taken up a very ambitious fencing exercise. Since 1980s, India has actively tried to fence this international border as much as possible despite the difficult terrain so that we can curb illegal infiltration and tackle organized crime and the movement of terrorists and insurgents. So as part of the fencing project, today we have completed nearly 95% or 96% of the entire stretch of the border is fenced, almost 2,135 kilometers out of the 2,229 odd kilometers of the IB is completely fenced by India. So it means there are just a few small gaps here and there. India has even put in place floodlights. Floodlighting is used to provide better visibility during foggy conditions, during night time, so that the forces can keep better surveillance against any infiltration attempts. India has even employed advanced technology, high-tech surveillance in the form of motion sensors, laser-based, thermal-based imaging and sensing equipment. India has deployed drones, satellite surveillance, CCTV cameras, So advanced technology is also being deployed because it's not easy to guard and patrol every inch of the border, right? It's humanly impossible. So you need to take up such physical measures like fencing and floodlighting, and you need to deploy technology which is a force multiplier. Now, the fencing of this border is not done exactly on the border line. The exact border is often referred to as the zero line. Please make a note of this. This is a technical term. The term zero line refers to the exact location where the boundary is passing between two countries. So India, Bangladesh have a zero line. India, Pakistan have a zero line. It is nothing but the exact border, the exact line that acts as the border. So usually the practice is that you don't put up your fences right on the zero line. You create a small buffer. Usually a no man's land is created as per accepted international norms. This is up to 150 yards or 150 meters from the actual zero line. So from the exact border, a distance of 150 yards or meters is left on both the sides. India would also leave that gap, Pakistan would also leave that gap, and then they create the fencing structure so that it will act as a buffer for the border guarding forces. And across this fence, only border guarding forces are allowed. Civilians are not allowed to cross this fence in general. Though this is not the exact India-Pakistan border, the zero line is still few meters away, right? The zero line is still a little away from the actual fence. But only security personnel can cross over. Civilians are never allowed to step across the fencing. Now, this creates a practical problem on the ground, especially in populated states such as Punjab, where thousands and thousands of farmers, they have farming land that's located across the fence. I mean, given the nature of partition that happened between India and Pakistan when the Ratcliffe line was drawn by the British, how the divisions took place here, many farmers in Punjab, in the border districts, they are facing this major hurdle from many decades. For example, you take border districts such as Gurdaspur, Pathankot, Tarantran, or Fazilka. Across the border districts, it is the same problem. In every village, at least 100 plus acres of farmland is located across the fence. It's still Indian territory. That land still belongs to that farmer, but they can't access it for farming. Why? Because the fence has been put up. Now, across the fence, access is allowed, but it is controlled by the BSF. Only controlled access is allowed to the farmers. Now, in this image, you can see the fence over here, right? Then the zero line is few meters away from here, approximately 150 yards away from here. That would be the exact India-Pakistan border. So there is some farmland present beyond this fence. Now, farmers can access this only through these gates after getting required permissions from BSF and after undergoing regular checks. So BSF has put up these gates. In between the fences, there are gates at certain locations. Farmers are allowed to cross over only for certain periods of time so that they can take care of their farmland. This land does not belong to the government. This land still belongs to the farmers. So there are fixed timings, fixed days when farmers are allowed to cross over, but only after showing the required documents, registering themselves. They undergo proper security checks. If they have to bring more laborers, that will become even more tedious, taking even more time. And the gates are opened only for a few hours in a day, which is not enough for the farmers to take care of their land. So somehow, with lot of effort and struggle, the in the Punjabi heartland, the farmers, they cross over to take care of their farmland. They sow the crops, but they can't harvest it on time. So it has become a practical concern, a real challenge for them. There are thousands and thousands of acres of farmland which is stranded on the other side of the fence in this manner. As I said, in every village, at least 100 acres is present on the other side of the fence. So that is why it has become a major challenge for the local farmers. Is that clear? Especially when the harvest season comes up, they have to depend on permissions given by BSF officials to open the gates, to cross, and to harvest the crop, or else the standing crop will go to waste. So, this is the big challenge being faced by the farmers in Punjab. So, to address this, recently the government has decided to start the process of moving the border fence right up to the zero line, at least in the Punjab sector. Punjab alone has a 532-kilometer border, if I'm not wrong. And the government has recently announced, just a few days ago, that it is in the process of starting this exercise where the fence will be moved to the exact zero line so that the farming land becomes accessible to the farmers. Now, can you find out which ministry is the nodal ministry for border management and border security? Please let me know the answer in the comments. Which ministry is responsible for border security and border management? Now, coming to the last set of articles, we have a few topics. Let's go through them quickly. On page 13, it has been reported that Iran has made a U-turn again with regard to its claims of completely opening the Hormuz Strait. See, over the last couple of days, we have been telling you that Iran has announced the complete opening of Hormuz Strait, which has eased the pressure on global oil prices and the markets. This announcement was made by Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi. But on the ground, Iran has taken a U-turn, especially the IRGC and its naval units. They have used the fast gunboats that they have to target some of the vessels that were trying to pass through Hormuz Strait. So this has added fresh uncertainty and could increase tensions between US and Iran again. So why has Iran made a U-turn? First, they announced that they are opening Hormuz, and now they are saying it is shut again. See, there are a couple of things to understand here. One, it's not just Iran which is known to make a U-turn. The United States, particularly Mr. Trump, is known to be the master of all U-turns. Every few hours, he has been making contradictory statements. I mean, this is probably one of the first conflicts where such level of um, wrong communication or deliberate miscommunication is being carried out. So every few hours, we have a new update. That's why there is more chaos, there's more uncertainty, which is adding the pressure on the global markets as well. And there are conspiracy theories that these governments are doing it deliberately to time the markets. If you notice, such announcements, big announcements, are usually made on Friday night when the markets are shut, and they often make a U turn again by Monday. So they say that they're timing the markets to reap profits because they know as to how the decisions could be changed. And with this insider knowledge, they can time the markets, they can short the markets and reap huge rewards in millions of dollars. So this accusation is there against Mr. Trump and his close set of officials. It is present even against Iran as well. It's been alleged that even Iran is trying to time the markets to make money out of it, right? So that's the kind of world that we are dealing with today. So one reason here for Iran making such a quick U-turn could be because of the internal divisions within the Iranian regime. See, the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the paramilitary force, which also acts as the intelligence agency that protects the Shia theocracy and it is seen as a radical entity. It is always aligned on the radical side. It wouldn't seek to stop the war or agree for any concessions with US and Israel. They would like the war to continue, right? On the other hand, you have slightly moderate, more pragmatic and practical leaders like Abbas Araghchi and Ghalibaf, the ones who are leading the negotiations. Araghchi being the foreign minister, Ghalibaf being the speaker of the Iranian parliament. Now, they might be taking a more moderate and a more pragmatic stand. So when Araghchi announced the opening of Hormuz, probably it was a goodwill gesture towards the US to show that Iran is ready for a compromise, that Iran is willing to show some goodwill. But maybe IRGC doesn't agree with it, clearly highlighting the power struggle within the regime. And also the new Ayatollah, Mujtaba Khamenei, He has not been seen in public. There are questions about his health. So this could point towards leadership divisions within the regime itself, resulting in contradictory statements and actions. The other plausible reason is that the United States is creating new trouble each and every day. See, once Trump says that they are agreeing for a ceasefire, that all operations will halt. On the other hand, he has mobilized US Navy. More US warships have arrived near Hormuz. And Trump said that he will not lift the blockade on Iranian ports at any cost. That is, until a final deal is agreed upon, Trump is saying that the blockade on Iranian ports will not be lifted. Now, obviously, why would Iran agree to this? Maybe Iran had initially announced this in goodwill, saying that we'll open up Hormuz for the short period till the ceasefire expires, right? But now, since Trump is not willing to lift the American blockade on Hormuz, where Iranian vessels and Iranian ports are being blocked, Iran will try to use the leverage again. This has been Iran's biggest leverage in the war, not even its missiles and drones. So, this reversal from Iran has raised global concerns again. Because yesterday, something dramatic happened near Hormuz. See, India has around 22 cargo vessels that are stuck. At the start of the war, it was around 24 vessels loaded with massive amounts of oil and gas headed towards Indian ports. Only two of them made it out of Hormuz after Iran granted permission for India. So 22 vessels are still stuck with hundreds of Indian mariners. Their safety is also at risk. So since the announcement was made a few days ago that Hormuz is now open, these vessels tried transiting Hormuz Strait. And as they were trying to pass, the IRGC gunboats have intercepted them and even opened fire. According to reports, a few vessels and containers have suffered damage. Fortunately, there have been no injuries or casualties amongst the mariners. And a couple of Indian ships have been brought under fire. So this has led all the vessels to return back, to take a turn again and go back into the Persian Gulf because Iran is not allowing any vessel to pass through. Iran is saying that they will impose a toll. They have to pay a toll to pass through it because this is Iran's way of seeking reparations. Since US Israel have destroyed Iran's infrastructure, Iran is claiming compensation for it, reparations, by tolling the Hormuz Strait, and US is not agreeing to it. So this places a big question mark over the proposed second round of talks. The coming week, Wednesday, the ceasefire is going to expire. The temporary 2-week ceasefire will expire. Right? Pakistan is rushing to organize another round of talks between Iran and US by working with other mediators like Egypt, Turkey, Saudi, and the others. Now, these talks will go nowhere if both US and Iran keep taking such drastic steps and actions. On one hand, Trump claims that US has decimated Iranian navy, but IRGC gunboats are able to disrupt the movement of vessels even today. Right? So this is the main challenge. Now, the firing on Indian ships has raised alarm in India, and India has summoned the Iranian envoy to raise a strong diplomatic protest. We have reminded Iran that it had earlier given a permission for us, a special exemption to allow Indian ships to pass through. And now IRGC gunboats and local commanders are taking matters into their own hands and opening fire at Indian vessels. Fortunately, nothing untoward has happened, but India is concerned about the safety of the mariners and the precious cargo that they are carrying. So we have summoned the Iranian envoy, expressing our resentment and protest and urging Iran to ensure freedom of navigation through Hormuz. Now, the next related development. The United States has extended the sanctions relief on Russian oil for one more month. But this applies only for Russian oil which is already stranded at sea. It will not apply for fresh Russian oil which is being extracted. It will apply only for Russian oil which is already stranded at sea because of sanctions. So this can be bought by refiners across the world without facing the impact of American sanctions. See, this is the irony of this conflict. Trump and Netanyahu, who started this war, the largely unnecessary war, which has pushed the global economy into this chaos mode, they led Iran to exercise its biggest leverage, which is to target infrastructure across the Gulf region, blockade Hormuz, triggering a huge supply shock for oil and gas. To ease the pressure on the global oil gas market and ease the prices, it was necessary to bring in more supplies into the market. And what does Trump do? Trump provides a sanction relief to Russia, which again is contradictory. The sanctions on Russia was primarily to punish Russia for the Ukraine war, to cripple Russian finances, so that the Ukraine conflict cannot extend. So, in a way, this war is helping Russia profit. Russia is profiting immensely. According to trade data, in the month of March, Russia's oil revenue has doubled because this crisis created by Trump himself. To ease that pressure on global oil prices, he allowed Russian oil to be lifted and a 1 month sanction relief was given. And this was good for India. Indian refiners started picking up Russian oil that was already stranded at sea. Yesterday, we discussed how Indian refiners started looking at Iranian oil because even for Iran stranded oils, a similar exemption was given. For 1 month, sanctions were lifted. So now US is extending the sanctions relief on Russian oil for 1 more month. And that's good news for India. Though it creates more confusion in the global markets as to till when it will last, how Russia could profit from this, how it could result in Russia stepping up the war in Ukraine. That's why European countries are opposing such policies. Even within the US government, there is opposition to lift the sanctions. As Russia increases its revenue from selling the oil, it could fuel fresh conflict in Ukraine, enhanced conflict in Ukraine. But for now, for India, this is a decent relief for now, for the time being, as India can pick up Russian oil, which is stranded at sea for 1 more month. Now, come to the prelim section, just two articles, two very, very important topics. India has announced a new insurance for the maritime sector. The Union Cabinet has yesterday taken a landmark decision. A $1.4 billion maritime insurance pool is being created. It's being labeled as the Bharat Maritime Insurance Pool. So, what is it? How is it different? See, when it comes to shipping, vessels carry precious goods and commodities worth millions and millions of dollars. And for any shipping, there is always a risk attached to it. Could be weather related risk. The ship could face an accident, it could get stranded. Or if it is passing through critical choke points like Hormuz, Malacca, if it is passing through critical maritime corridors where there is an active conflict going on, like for example in Black Sea or near Persian Gulf, or where there are serious security threats like piracy near Gulf of Aden. This heightens the risk for shipping. So there is a possibility of the vessel being damaged or all the goods being lost at sea. Now that's a loss that no company can bear. So shipping insurance is mandatory, right? And shipping insurance is very expensive. The premiums are very, very expensive, costing millions of dollars. And especially during wartime, for these critical routes like Hormuz Strait or let's say Red Sea corridor, Persian Gulf route, the premium becomes much, much higher as the war risk is added to the premium by the insurers. Not just private insurers, even India's public sector insurance firms will add war risk premium, and this will increase the premium exponentially, making it almost unaffordable for the vessel owners. So they will obviously pass down the cost, they'll pass it down to the importers, right? And they will pass it down to the customers eventually. That is what triggers inflation. This could disrupt shipping, it could disrupt supply chains. So it's important to protect the shipping industry by providing a security cover for them through an insurance pool. And now the Indian government has taken up this massive step. The Bharat Maritime Insurance Pool has been approved by the Union Cabinet. It will have a pool of 12,900 crores. It will be a sovereign insurance scheme under the government control. It will also reduce our dependency on foreign insurers, giving the sovereign state greater control over shipping and enhancing the safety of our shipping routes and vessels. And more importantly, it will provide better risk management to deal with geopolitical tensions. So it will apply for all vessels headed towards India carrying precious cargo. And if they have an Indian flag or registered in India, all these vessels can avail this insurance from the Bharat Maritime Insurance Pool. They don't have to pay the expensive war risk premium, which they can't afford, right? So Indian flagged vessels, Indian origin or Indian registered vessels, which are carrying cargo towards Indian ports or leaving Indian ports, they can access this insurance facility, a sovereign controlled facility that will make India a little more self-reliant when it comes to global shipping. Next, Israel has set up another yellow line. Israel had first set up a yellow line in Gaza last year when the ceasefire was announced with Hamas. Now, similarly, in Lebanon, after the 10-day ceasefire was announced with the Lebanese government and Hezbollah, a similar yellow line is being drawn out by Israel. So, what is this yellow line? Let's understand. It can be a very important prelims topic. See, in the Gaza war, Israeli forces, the IDF, they had invaded deep into Gaza, right? They controlled almost every stretch of Gaza. And now that the ceasefire came into effect last year, which was mediated by United States, the IDF was supposed to withdraw. So can you see the yellow line here? This is the Gaza Strip. And you can see this yellow line, the yellow shaded area behind it. This is the area that IDF controls even today, even after the ceasefire. The IDF remains in full control of this yellow area behind the yellow line. Israel says that this is necessary for Israel's security. Basically, it's like a buffer, a security buffer which has been created. The other side is controlled by Hamas. Similarly, in Lebanon, Israel is now trying to create a yellow corridor by drawing a yellow line. Now, look at the map here. This is the international border between Israel and Lebanon. This is also referred to as the blue line, as a UN peacekeeping force is deployed here, the UNIFIL, to maintain peace between Israel, Lebanon, and Hezbollah. As per the previous ceasefire agreements and UN mediated resolutions, Israeli defense forces are not supposed to cross this blue line. Clear? I used red because it's clearly visible for you. If I had used blue, maybe it wouldn't be visible, right? But please note, this is the blue line that marks the international border, which IDF is not supposed to cross. But now IDF has invaded into Lebanon because it believes that Hezbollah has violated the ceasefire terms and it has crossed the Litani River. This is your Litani River. This right here is the Litani River. As per the ceasefire, the previous ceasefire agreements, Hezbollah is not supposed to be present to the south of Litani. They are supposed to be present only to the north of Litani. But Hezbollah has moved its fighters and weapons to the southern part of Lebanon across the Litany. From here, it can easily launch rockets, missiles, and drones into northern Israel, targeting civilian areas. That's why the IDF has invaded the country, to ensure that southern part of Lebanon is free from Hezbollah. So, as part of this new ceasefire that they have agreed upon, the 10-day ceasefire, Israel has said we will not vacate the positions in southern Lebanon. And it's creating this yellow corridor similar to Gaza, creating a security buffer through this yellow line that IDF will control. Though there is a UN peacekeeping mission here, IDF forces are likely to retain this control here. Essentially, Israel would be occupying this territory, which could add to further complexities in this conflict. Understood? So on this note, I bring the analysis to an end. I hope you found all the topics to be interesting and the analysis to be useful. If you did, please let me know in the comments, press the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.